For a long time, humans were seen as small and harmless, compared to the great alien civilizations of the galaxy. While others ruled over thousands of worlds and built massive empires, humans were just beginning to explore space. They were curious, ambitious, and brave, but also unpredictable. Some aliens admired them for their creativity, while others feared their stubbornness. Still, most thought humanity would never become truly powerful. They were just another young race trying to find its place among the stars. But then something strange happened. Humanity began to change. Slowly, quietly, they pulled away from the galactic stage. Their ambassadors who once spoke at interstellar councils started to leave. Human colonies stopped answering messages. Trade routes to Earth went silent. One by one, their star systems cut off communication until the humans were simply gone. At first, the other species didn't care much. Humans were known for being dramatic and emotional. Maybe they were fighting among themselves again. But decades passed and still there was no word. No signals, no ships. Even the massive orbital stations near Earth disappeared from radar. It was as if the entire species had folded into darkness. Rumors began to spread in every corner of the galaxy. Some said Earth had been destroyed in a civil war. Others whispered that a strange disease had wiped them out. A few believed humans had found a way to hide themselves from scanners and were preparing for something, but no one had proof. The truth was hidden deep within the region once known as human space, a place now called the Silent Zone. Alien merchants who once traveled to human planets told stories in dark bars and spaceports. They spoke of human scientists who had started working on something massive before the silence began. They were building worlds, one old trader said, his voice shaking. Worlds made of metal. Others laughed at him, calling it nonsense. How could humans with their limited resources create such things? But deep down, even the most advanced alien minds were curious. Humans had always been full of surprises. Meanwhile, on the distant edges of the galaxy, some alien exploration ships tried to enter the Silent Zone. They wanted to know what had really happened. The first few expeditions never returned. The next ones came back with stories that only added to the mystery. They said they found wrecked ships drifting near the border, ships that had been torn apart by weapons no one had ever seen before. A few brave explorers claimed to have picked up faint signals from deep within human space. Those signals didn't sound like distress calls. They were rhythmic, powerful, almost like a heartbeat, steady and enormous, echoing across light years. No one could decode them. The signals stopped as suddenly as they began. Across the galaxy, powerful governments grew nervous. The Galactic Union, a council made up of dozens of ancient species, debated endlessly about the humans. Some members said humanity had probably destroyed itself, and the Union should just mark the area as restricted space. Others insisted they should send a massive fleet to investigate before the silence became a bigger problem. But every time the Union prepared a mission, something went wrong. Ships assigned to patrol near the Silent Zone would malfunction. Their systems would crash. Their navigators would lose their bearings even though the stars hadn't moved. Some captains claimed to see ghostly shapes drifting through space, huge dark outlines that blocked out the stars for a few seconds before vanishing. The crews reported feelings of being watched. Soon, even the bravest species began to avoid that part of the galaxy. They called it cursed, haunted, or forbidden, yet the silence of humanity began to feel louder than ever. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy didn't know what to expect. Some alien historians remembered how quickly humans had risen in the past. It had taken them only a few centuries to go from small, fragile machines to interstellar travel. They had fought wars with beings far more powerful than themselves and had somehow survived every time. If they had truly disappeared, why was the region around their home still protected by powerful energy storms and strange gravitational fields? Something about it felt intentional. Theories multiplied. One scientist from the Andari species proposed that humans had gone underground, literally. He believed they were building something beneath their planet's surfaces. They've always been builders, he said. Give them time and a reason and they'll reshape worlds. Others called him crazy. Still, the fear of the unknown grew. Years turned into decades and younger generations of aliens started to forget what humans even looked like. To them, humanity became a legend, a race that had once burned bright then vanished into myth. Stories spread among travelers that humans had found a way to create living planets, that they had discovered a new kind of energy, that they were preparing for an invasion no one could imagine. Children in alien cities whispered about the ghosts of Earth who would one day return, but the truth was much simpler and far more terrifying. Humanity had learned that the galaxy was not as peaceful as it seemed. During their early years of exploration, they had discovered traces of something old and deadly, an ancient force buried beyond known space. They knew that when it returned, no empire, no alliance would be ready. And so, while the rest of the galaxy argued and fought over territory, humans decided to do what they always did best: survive. They withdrew, not because they were weak, but because they needed time. Time to build, time to prepare, time to turn their fear into power. On Earth and across hidden colonies, millions of scientists, engineers, and builders worked together in total secrecy. They constructed factories the size of continents, mined entire moons, and hollowed out planets to create something the galaxy had never seen before. From the outside, it looked like they had disappeared. But under the silence, deep in the dark of space, something massive was taking shape. Humanity was building a new kind of defense, a weapon so large and so powerful that it would not just protect a planet, but entire star systems. And while the galaxy slept peacefully, thinking humanity was gone forever, the echoes of engines hummed beneath the stars. The once quiet humans were no longer just surviving. They were preparing for the day when the universe would come knocking again. By the time the rest of the galaxy realized what was happening, it would already be too late. Humanity's silence was not a sign of weakness. It was the calm before a storm unlike anything the stars had ever seen. Many years passed after humanity's silence began. The galaxy slowly moved on, but the mystery of the missing humans never truly faded. Traders, explorers, and scientists still whispered about them in secret. Some claimed they had seen strange lights in the far reaches of space in regions that once belonged to the humans. Others said they had picked up faint signals, patterns that didn't match any known language. Most people dismissed these stories as nonsense, but a few couldn't stop wondering. Then the strange readings began. It started small, an energy surge detected by a mining station near the border of the Silent Zone. The readings were massive, far greater than anything produced by a normal starship. At first, the miners thought it was a glitch, but when more stations began to report the same thing, panic started to spread. The energy levels were so high they could only come from something enormous, something the size of a small moon. A team of scientists from the Galactic Union tried to study the readings. They compared them with old human data but found nothing similar. The energy was stable, steady, and extremely controlled. That meant it wasn't a natural phenomenon. Someone or something was generating it on purpose. The Union sent a few unmanned probes to investigate. The first probe vanished after crossing the border. The second sent back only one image before going dark. The image was blurry and distorted, but in it, they could see what looked like a massive metallic surface stretching beyond the camera's view. Some thought it was a planet. Others said it was a machine. The image was classified immediately, and the Union announced that the probe had simply malfunctioned. But secrets never stay hidden for long. A technician leaked part of the data, and within days every major species in the galaxy knew. Something enormous was moving inside human space. Exploration ships began to disappear. Entire fleets sent to scan the Silent Zone never returned. The few distress signals that did come through were terrifying. Pilots screamed about shadows larger than continents, engines failing, and navigation systems going blind. One message repeated a phrase before cutting off completely. The sky is made of metal. Governments panicked. Military commanders argued over whether to investigate further or seal off the entire region. Some believed the humans had built massive weapons. Others thought it was an alien invasion from beyond the galaxy. No one could agree on anything. The Galactic Union finally sent a small group of warships to patrol near the border. They were told not to cross the line, only to observe. At first, everything seemed calm. Then one of the warships detected a massive gravitational shift nearby, like a planet suddenly appearing out of nowhere. The crew watched their scanners go haywire. Then through the darkness, they saw it, an enormous shadow moving slowly against the stars. The ship's captain described it as a world turned inside out. It had continents of metal, rivers of light, and mountain-sized structures that glowed faintly as it moved. The ship tried to contact it, but there was no reply. Then, without warning, their systems began to fail one by one. Engines shut down. Lights flickered. The communication feed filled with static. The last thing the crew saw was a bright pulse of blue light before the transmission ended. When the patrol fleet failed to report back, the Galactic Union called an emergency meeting. The alien delegates were terrified. Some demanded that the humans be declared a threat. Others begged to open contact and find out the truth. A few older and wiser species simply remained silent. They remembered how quickly humans could change when cornered. Weeks later, fragments of the destroyed patrol ships were found drifting near the border. The ships weren't burned or melted. They looked as if they had been carefully taken apart and then released into space. It was almost as if someone had wanted to send a message. We could destroy you. We chose not to. The galaxy erupted in chaos. News networks broadcast rumors nonstop. People on distant worlds panicked, fearing an attack. Merchants stopped traveling near human space. Even powerful empires began to prepare their defenses. The name Earthborn started appearing again, whispered in fear and awe. Meanwhile, scientists studying the energy readings noticed something unusual. The signals weren't random. They repeated in cycles, each one lasting exactly 24 hours, Earth's old rotation time. That meant the source was definitely human. But the scale of the power was beyond belief. Some of the readings showed outputs larger than entire planetary cores. It was as if the humans had learned to harness the energy of stars. Speculation turned into obsession. Every species tried to spy on the silent zone. Drones were launched, stealth probes were sent. Even psychic observers tried to peer into human space, but nothing worked. Every attempt ended the same way, silence. Then something even stranger happened. The galactic trade networks began to experience disruptions. Entire data relays, massive space structures started to fail one by one. Engineers traced the problem to a pattern of pulses traveling faster than light, almost like coded signals moving through hyperspace. No one could stop them. The pulses originated from deep within human territory. Some experts claimed it was just interference. Others believed it was a warning. A few brave explorers decided to go themselves. One was Captain Reinar of the Valon species, known for his fearlessness. He took a small team and ventured across the border. For days they sent back clear reports until the third day when their messages became strange. Reinar's voice was shaky. He said they had found something vast, far larger than any planet he'd ever seen. It looked like a dark world floating in the void, but it had no atmosphere, no oceans, no life. It was made entirely of metal. The readings showed that it had its own gravity and power source. He tried to move closer, but the ship's systems began to fail. Alarms blared. The last thing Reinar said was, "It's not a planet. It's watching us." Then the signal died. When his ship didn't return, the Galactic Union could no longer deny the truth. Whatever the humans had built, it was enormous, and it was active. The Union tried to send peace messages toward the Silent Zone, broadcasting in every known frequency, hoping someone would answer. For months, there was nothing. Then one night, deep space sensors across the galaxy picked up something impossible. Dozens of the mysterious energy readings activated at once. The entire Silent Zone lit up on scanners brighter than any sun. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy could see inside human space, and what they saw changed everything. There were not one, but several massive objects orbiting distant stars. Each one was larger than any known space station or ship. Some were the size of moons. Others were the size of entire planets. Their surfaces gleamed like silver, covered in layers of armor and light. From above, they looked like worlds, but beneath they pulsed with energy and movement. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. These weren't planets. They were machines, planet-sized warships. Panic swept through every major world. The Union tried to calm the people, claiming that humans might have built them for defense, not war. But deep down, everyone was afraid. If humans had truly constructed entire planets that could move and fight, what else were they capable of? Small rebel groups started calling the humans the builders of worlds. Others called them the Silent Titans. Across the galaxy, scholars debated what had driven humanity to such extremes. Some believed they were preparing to fight an ancient enemy. Others thought they had gone mad with power. But there was one thing everyone agreed on. The humans were back. And they had not been idle during their silence. From the hidden corners of space, strange lights began to appear, gateways opening near the edges of known systems. People saw faint shapes moving through them, like enormous shadows drifting slowly across the stars. Every scanner in the galaxy went on alert. Messages filled the airwaves. The humans were no longer a mystery. They had chosen their moment carefully. They had built their power in secret out of sight, while the galaxy underestimated them. And now, as their creations began to awaken, the rest of the universe realized too late that humanity's silence had not been peace. It had been preparation. Every civilization, from the mightiest empire to the smallest colony, watched the stars and waited, wondering the same question: what would the humans do next? The Galactic Union could no longer ignore what was happening. The strange energy readings had spread across every sensor network in known space. Something massive was waking up in the human territories, and the signals were spreading faster every day. Fleets were mobilized, diplomats sent urgent messages, and entire civilizations were gripped with fear. Everyone wanted to know what the humans had done in their long silence and why. After weeks of debate, the Union finally decided to act. They gathered a coalition of warships from 12 different species, the largest investigation fleet ever assembled. Their mission was simple: enter human space and find the source of the signals. The fleet was led by Admiral Kelvar, a seasoned alien commander who had once met human officers during the old Alliance days. He didn't believe humans were evil, but he also knew how dangerous they could become when pushed. As the fleet approached the border of the Silent Zone, the stars themselves seemed to fade. The ship's sensors struggled to stay locked on course. Static filled their communication channels. It was as if the universe didn't want them to go any further. But the Admiral pressed on. He had orders, and the galaxy demanded answers. When the first ships crossed the border, everything changed. The darkness around them grew thicker, almost alive. Strange gravitational waves rippled through space, making smaller ships shake violently. Some of the crew began to feel dizzy and disoriented, their instruments showing impossible readings, stars that flickered in and out of existence, light bending around invisible objects. Then one of the scouts shouted that they had found something. A massive shadow loomed ahead. At first it looked like a planet, perfectly round and enormous. But as they drew closer, the truth became clear. It wasn't a natural world, it was built. The surface shimmered with layers of metallic plating, reflecting the distant light of the stars. Gigantic towers rose from the horizon, stretching miles high, and rivers of glowing energy flowed across its body like veins of fire. The fleet went silent in awe. The planet-sized structure rotated slowly, revealing markings etched into its hull. And then, for the first time in centuries, they saw it, the symbol of humanity. The old blue insignia of Earth glowing faintly among the metal ridges. The humans hadn't just built a ship. They had built an entire world. Admiral Kelvar tried to send a transmission. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "This is the Galactic Union fleet. We come in peace. Identify yourselves." For a few seconds, there was only silence. The crew held their breath, waiting. Then, deep within the metallic world, lights began to awaken, millions of them, forming patterns like cities turning on at night. A deep vibration echoed through the ship's hulls, followed by a low hum that felt more like a heartbeat than a sound. Suddenly, a voice came through the comms, calm, cold, and unmistakably human. "We warned you not to enter our space." The entire fleet froze. The voice wasn't angry. It was controlled, almost emotionless, but it carried a weight that made even the most hardened soldiers feel small. The Admiral tried to explain. "We come to understand what you've done here. The galaxy fears the unknown. We need to know if you intend harm." For a long time there was no answer. Then the voice returned, deeper and louder. "You fear what you do not control. We asked for peace. You gave us silence and suspicion, so we built what we needed to survive." Before the Admiral could respond, the massive structure began to move. The readings went off the charts. The metallic planet was shifting, rotating faster, opening vast mechanical panels across its surface. Huge engines ignited along its equator, glowing with blue fire. The fleet's scanners screamed with warnings. This was no mere station. It was alive. A name appeared on the Union's displays, transmitted in human language: Titanus. Every ship in the fleet pulled back, unsure whether to attack or flee. Titanus continued to unfold itself, revealing immense cannons that stretched hundreds of kilometers long. But they didn't fire. Instead, The voice spoke again. "You came armed into our home. You brought weapons to our sky. We will not attack unless you force us." The admiral tried to calm his crew, but panic was spreading fast. Several smaller ships opened fire out of fear, launching energy blasts at Titanus. The beams struck the planet's hull and vanished like sparks against an ocean. Then, in a single moment, every attacking ship froze. Their weapons powered down, engines shut off, and shields collapsed. They were completely disabled. The human voice returned, colder now. "Do not mistake our silence for weakness." The fleet's communications officer whispered in disbelief. "They disabled them without destroying anything." "How?" No one had an answer. The technology the humans were using was far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Then, from the surface of Titanus, hundreds of smaller objects began to rise. Shining ships, each one the size of a city, moving in perfect formation. They formed a vast circle around the alien fleet. It wasn't an attack formation. It was a warning. Admiral Kelvar felt his heart sink. He realized humanity hadn't been hiding in fear. They had been preparing. For what, he didn't know. But this was not the act of a dying species. This was the rise of something new. He opened the channel once more. "Human command. What do you want from us?" The reply came softly. "We want you to remember. We were mocked, threatened, and ignored. When we needed unity, the galaxy left us behind. So we turned inward. We learned, we built, we adapted, and now we have no masters. We protect our own." Kelvar asked quietly. "Protect from what?" The voice paused before answering. "From what's coming." Those 3 words chilled every being aboard the fleet. Before they could ask more, the transmission ended. The glowing lights of Titanus dimmed, and the massive ship planet slowly began to drift back into the darkness. The smaller human ships followed it like silent guardians, disappearing one by one into the black void. The alien fleet didn't dare pursue. They retreated immediately, shaken and silent. They knew that what they had seen would change everything. When the fleet returned to Union space, the galaxy erupted with shock and disbelief. The recordings of Titanus spread everywhere, showing the massive metallic world and the calm human voice that had spoken with such power. Some called humanity heroes, others called them monsters. But everyone agreed on one thing: the humans had surpassed them all. Scientists studied the recordings endlessly. The materials used on Titanus didn't match anything known in the galaxy. The energy output was beyond calculation. Engineers argued that it wasn't just a ship. It was a self-sustaining ecosystem, capable of generating its own gravity, atmosphere, and resources. A moving planet of steel and fire. And yet the humans hadn't attacked. They hadn't even destroyed the ships that fired on them. That restraint confused everyone. If they had that much power, why show mercy? Some believed it was a message. Humanity wanted peace, but on their own terms. Others believed it was a warning. The humans didn't see the galaxy as equals anymore. Behind closed doors, leaders of the great alien empires met in secret. They couldn't agree on how to respond. Some wanted to prepare for war. Others said that any attempt to attack would be suicide. A few dared to suggest forming an alliance with humanity again, though even they were afraid. Meanwhile, in the shadows of space, human transmissions began to spread quietly through the networks. They contained no threats, no ultimatums, just a single statement repeated in every language. Humanity does not seek conquest. We seek survival. But if the stars burn again, we will be the fire that answers. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy felt truly small. No one knew how many of these planet-sized ships existed. Some guessed a dozen, others said hundreds. No one knew if humanity had created something beyond Titanus, something even greater, still hidden in the dark. And while the alien worlds argued and feared deep inside the heart of Titanus, human engineers continued to work. The voices of machines echoed through colossal chambers the size of continents. They weren't celebrating their victory or preparing for war. They were building for the day when the real enemy, the one they had discovered long ago, would return from the edge of the universe. Humanity had revealed its strength not to dominate, but to remind the galaxy that they were ready for anything. And though the galaxy trembled, no one yet understood the full truth. Titanus was only the beginning. Fear spread across the galaxy like wildfire after the fleet's encounter with Titanus. Every planet, every government, every alien species began to talk about one thing only: humans. No one had expected that the same species once seen as weak, emotional, and unpredictable could build something so massive and powerful. The galaxy had lived for centuries believing that humans had vanished. Now they were back, stronger than ever, and the entire universe was trembling. On the capital world of the Galactic Union, chaos filled the great halls. Leaders shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate war. Others begged for peace and caution. The recordings of Titanus played again and again on giant screens, showing the massive planet ship and the calm human voice that had spoken those chilling words. "We will not attack unless you force us." The Union couldn't agree on what to do. The military commanders wanted to strike before the humans grew even stronger. They believed humanity was building an entire fleet of these war worlds. If that was true, then the balance of power in the galaxy was already broken. But the older species, the ones who had fought humans in the past, warned against it. They remembered human persistence, their refusal to surrender, their ability to turn every defeat into victory. "If you attack them," one old admiral said, "you will not win. You will awaken something far worse. But fear makes even wise minds reckless." Within weeks, a secret alliance was formed between several powerful empires. They gathered their biggest fleets, thousands of ships armed with the most destructive weapons in the galaxy. Their goal was simple: to destroy Titanus before it could become unstoppable. They told no one of their plan, not even the Union Council. Under the cover of silence, they entered the human border, believing they could catch the humans off guard. At first, it seemed they might succeed. Titanus was dark, floating quietly in space, surrounded by a ring of smaller ships. The invaders moved closer, weapons charged. The commanders gave the order to fire. In an instant, the stars lit up. Thousands of energy blasts rained down on Titanus, shaking space itself. Explosions rippled across the surface. But when the light faded, the attackers realized something terrifying. The warship world was untouched. Titanus began to move. The metal surface split open, revealing glowing lines of blue energy spreading across its continents like veins of fire. A deep hum filled the void, powerful enough to make every ship tremble. Then, with a thunderous flash, Titanus released a wave of pure energy. The shock wave expanded outward, not destroying the attacking ships, but freezing them. Every weapon, every engine, every system stopped working. The ships hung helplessly in space, unable to move or fight. The human voice returned, echoing through every channel in the fleet. "You attacked without reason. You feared what you could not control. We will not destroy you, but you will remember this." Then, to everyone's shock, the disabled ships began to drift safely away. The humans were letting them live. The galaxy had seen great wars before, but never such restraint. It was clear now, the humans weren't interested in conquest. They had power beyond imagination, yet they chose not to kill. That made them even more frightening. Word of the failed attack spread quickly. The truth could not be hidden. Billions of people watched in horror as their leaders tried to explain. Some demanded war again, claiming humans would soon enslave everyone. Others saw humanity as saviors, beings who had grown wise and patient, strong enough to protect even those who hated them. But while the galaxy argued, another signal appeared. It came from the heart of the silent zone, stronger and clearer than any before. Every sensor across the galaxy picked it up. It wasn't a message in words, but a pattern, a pulse, like a heartbeat. When scientists analyzed it, they realized it was coming from several different locations at once. More of the human war worlds were waking up. Each one had a name: Titanus, Hyperion, Goliath, and others whose titles were lost in the static. Together they formed a fleet unlike anything that had ever existed. Not ships, but living planets, each one capable of defending entire systems. The galaxy's strongest empires now understood. Humanity had not built one weapon. They had built an army of worlds. Still, the humans remained silent. They didn't expand, didn't invade. They simply moved into new orbits, positioning themselves around the borders of galactic space as if creating a shield. To most aliens, it looked like a warning. To a few, it looked like protection. But peace never lasts. A group of frightened generals from a distant empire decided that they couldn't wait any longer. They launched a massive superweapon toward Titanus, a beam so powerful it could destroy a moon in seconds. The attack streaked across space, lighting up the sky. And then something happened that no one could explain. The beam never reached Titanus. It bent in mid-space, twisting like liquid light before vanishing completely. Moments later, the sky above the attackers filled with light. Titanus had responded, but not with fire or destruction. Instead, it released a gravitational pulse so strong that it pulled every attacking ship gently backward, then pushed them away unharmed. The humans had turned the laws of physics themselves into defense. Across the galaxy, silence followed. Every scientist, every soldier, every leader realized they were seeing technology far beyond their understanding. The humans had mastered something that even the oldest civilizations had never achieved. They could bend energy, gravity, and time as if the universe itself obeyed them. On the capital worlds of the great empires, fear turned into confusion. Why weren't the humans taking revenge? Why weren't they claiming territory or demanding tribute? Some began to believe that the humans had seen something terrible, something that had changed their entire purpose. Maybe they weren't preparing to fight the galaxy at all. Maybe they were preparing to fight something else. Rumors began to spread. Ancient records from deep space probes spoke of strange ruins and signals from the edge of the galaxy, older than any known civilization. Some believed the humans had found those ruins centuries ago and discovered the truth about the universe, that there was a force out there, far beyond the stars, waiting to return. A force that had once wiped out entire galaxies. If that was true, then humanity's silence, their isolation, and their planet-sized warships all made sense. They weren't weapons for domination, they were shields for survival. But the other races didn't know that yet. To them, the humans were still a threat. Armies mobilized again, though none dared to cross into human space. Diplomatic channels buzzed with endless messages begging for answers. The humans sent only one response, the same one they had given before. We seek peace, but we are ready for war. Meanwhile, strange events began to happen near the edges of the galaxy. Entire stars were flickering, going dark for minutes at a time. Unmanned ships vanished without a trace. Scientists detected gravitational waves from far beyond mapped space, something enormous moving in the dark, slowly approaching. The humans knew. On the surface of Titanus, inside its vast metallic continents, millions of humans and machines worked together. Engineers, soldiers, and scientists all prepared quietly, their faces calm and determined. They had known this day would come. That was why they had built the war worlds, not to threaten others, but to defend them. As the galaxy panicked and blamed them for everything, the humans continued their work. They strengthened their shields, calibrated their weapons, and expanded the great defense grid that now connected all of their warships. The grid pulsed like a heartbeat, synchronized across light years. And then one night, as alien astronomers watched the distant stars, they saw something they could not explain. A wall of darkness moving at the edge of the universe. It swallowed starlight like smoke, spreading wider every hour. The humans didn't respond to messages. They had gone silent again, but this time, it wasn't because of secrecy. It was because they were ready. When alien fleets scrambled to defend their borders, they suddenly received a transmission. It came from Titanus, the same calm voice as before. The storm has come. Stay behind the line. And then, for the first time in recorded history, the human war worlds moved as one. They accelerated toward the edge of the galaxy, engines glowing brighter than stars. Every ship, every planet-sized fortress, every drone vanished into hyperspace, heading straight toward the approaching darkness. The galaxy watched in awe. No one dared to follow. The humans had built their strength in silence, endured centuries of isolation, and now they were using it, not for conquest, but for protection. They were the wall between the living and the unknown, and as the last light of Titanus faded into the void, a single message echoed through the stars. We were not preparing to destroy. We were preparing to defend. Remember this when the sky grows dark. The galaxy finally understood. Humanity's greatest secret was not their power, it was their purpose. They had become the guardians of existence itself. Silence filled the galaxy after the human war worlds vanished into the dark. No one dared to move. Billions of eyes across countless planets stared at their screens, waiting for another signal, another sign that humanity still lived. But none came. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the humans remained gone. Their great planet ships, their glowing energy grids, their calm voices, all had disappeared beyond the stars. At first, many thought they had fled or destroyed themselves. Some believed the humans had found a new galaxy to conquer, or that the darkness had swallowed them whole. The Galactic Union tried to send scouts after them, but none returned. Every ship that crossed the human border vanished without a trace. It was as if the edge of space itself had turned into a wall. Without humans, the galaxy slowly began to fall apart again. The fragile peace that their presence had created started to crumble. Old rivalries returned. Empires began to fight over borders, trade routes, and resources. Small wars erupted and fear grew once more. People whispered that maybe the humans had been right, that something terrible was coming. Then, one night, the stars began to flicker. At first, scientists thought it was just a system malfunction, but soon entire sectors went dark. Star systems that had shone brightly for billions of years suddenly dimmed, as if someone had blown out cosmic candles. Panic spread across the galaxy. Civilizations that had once mocked human warnings now trembled. They sent messages across space, desperate for help. Is anyone there? Can anyone hear us? And then, finally, a voice answered. It was human. The signal was faint but clear, like a whisper carried across light years. We hear you. Stay where you are. Do not approach the darkness. The entire galaxy went silent again. The humans were alive, but where were they? The signal came from beyond the galactic rim, from a region no one had ever mapped. Scientists quickly triangulated the coordinates and realized something shocking. The humans were not returning to the galaxy. They were standing guard at its edge. Across the border of known space, enormous energy signatures began to appear. Dozens, then hundreds of massive objects, each one the size of a small moon. The human warworlds had formed a vast defensive line stretching across the entire galactic boundary. They floated there in perfect formation, glowing faintly against the endless dark. It was like a wall made of living planets, each one humming with quiet power. But what were they guarding against? That question was answered soon after. From the darkness beyond the galactic rim, something moved. It wasn't ships or fleets, it was bigger. Much bigger. It looked like a shadow that swallowed light itself, twisting space wherever it passed. Every sensor in the galaxy picked it up. Every scientist tried to understand it, but no one could. The readings made no sense. It wasn't made of matter. It wasn't alive. It was something else entirely, something ancient and hungry. The humans called it the Devourer. The first contact came quickly. The Devourer reached one of the human outposts stationed far beyond the rim. The outpost vanished in seconds, no explosion, no debris. It was simply erased. But within moments, Titanus and the other warworlds activated. Their glowing energy lines flared to life again, brighter than before, and then the humans fought. Across the edge of the galaxy, the warworlds unleashed everything they had. Beams of energy carved through the dark. Explosions lit up the void, and shockwaves rippled across space. The Devourer's shadow twisted and pushed back, swallowing everything it touched, but the humans didn't stop. They formed a wall of light against an ocean of darkness. Every weapon, every shield, every ship moved with perfect coordination. For the people of the galaxy, it was a sight beyond imagination. From thousands of light years away, the sky glowed with faint ripples of light. Telescopes captured flashes that looked like storms between stars. The humans were fighting not just for themselves, but for everyone. Inside Titanus, the command center buzzed with energy. Human officers and AI cores worked side by side. The air vibrated with tension. Captain Mara Ellen, one of the commanders of Titanus, stood before a holographic map showing the entire battlefront. She watched as sectors turned red one by one. They're spreading faster than we calculated, her science officer said. If they breach the wall, the entire galaxy is lost. Then we hold the line, Mara said quietly. No retreat. No surrender. For days the battle raged. The humans discovered that normal weapons could only slow the devourer, not stop it. So they turned to something new, technology that bent the very laws of physics. The warworlds linked their cores, creating a single network of pure energy. When they fired together, their combined blast tore open the fabric of space itself, creating a burning scar of light that pushed the devourer back. But the cost was high. One by one, some of the human warworlds began to fall. Hyperion, the second largest, was consumed entirely. Millions of humans aboard vanished with it. Yet even as their worlds were destroyed, the remaining ships fought harder. The devourer roared. Though no sound could travel in space, the galaxy felt it like a vibration through reality itself. Then came a message from Titanus, broadcast to every civilization across the stars. The voice was calm but firm. We stand at the edge of all things. What comes for us now would have come for you. If we fall, you must remember why we fought. You must carry on. All across the galaxy, people wept. Entire species stopped their wars, their arguments, their greed. They watched as the humans, the same species they once mocked and feared, fought to save them all. The final battle lasted for months. The devourer tried to breach the line again and again, but the humans adapted. They created energy barriers that moved like living things, shaping themselves around the enemy's attacks. At one point, when the devourer unleashed a wave that shattered 3 warworlds, Titanus sacrificed part of its core to save the others. The explosion was so massive that it could be seen from distant planets as a flash of light, brighter than any star. After that, the devourer began to retreat. Slowly, painfully, the shadow pulled back into the void. The humans didn't chase it. They simply held their ground, maintaining the wall of light. When the last trace of the darkness faded, the galaxy waited. Days passed. Then weeks. The warworld stopped transmitting. Titanus's beacon dimmed, then went silent. The humans were gone once more. For a long time, no one knew what had happened. The galaxy entered an age of quiet remembrance. Statues were built, songs were written, and entire planets were named in honor of the human sacrifice. The words "hold the line" became sacred across 1,000 worlds. Centuries later, long after the war, explorers from a young alien race reached the edge of the galaxy. There, floating in the void, they found the remains of Titanus. The once glowing surface was cold and lifeless, half of it shattered, drifting among frozen stars. They entered its dark corridors and found something incredible, an inscription carved into the central command core. It read, "If you are reading this, we succeeded. The darkness sleeps again. Watch the stars, and when they tremble, remember us." The explorers wept. They sent the message back to the galaxy, and soon every world heard the last words of humanity. The galaxy united once more, not in fear or greed, but in respect. They rebuilt their civilizations with the humans' lesson in their hearts. That power meant nothing without purpose, and that even the smallest race could become the greatest guardians of all. 1,000 years passed. The stars that once flickered now shone bright again. But every few generations, astronomers noticed strange readings, faint pulses of energy from beyond the galactic rim. The pattern was always the same, a steady, rhythmic heartbeat. Some said it was just echoes from the old battle. Others believed it was something more. Maybe somewhere in the darkness the humans still watched, still guarded the galaxy they had once saved. And on quiet nights, when the stars seemed to hum softly, many would look up at the sky and whisper a single phrase passed down through the ages. The humans held the line. And in that whisper, across 1,000 worlds, the legacy of humanity lived on, not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as protectors who gave everything so that the light would never die.